Over the last couple of days, the media has heavily reported on the fact that the US has barred 5 European officials to protect American online hate speech. As disgusting and meaningful as this action of the ugly American face is, it is only a small, even so a significant, portion of a much bigger threat. Let's talk about that. Everything you think it's safe on Canadian soil, your private emails, your business account, your government-sensitive records, it's currently vulnerable. It doesn't matter that the servers are in Vancouver, Toronto or Montreal because of one aggressive American law, the US Cloud Act. A US court can issue a single warrant and force US companies like Microsoft to hand over your data, no matter what our Canadian privacy law says. This is the digital invasion of our national sovereignty. Microsoft is investing $7.5 billion as part of a massive $19 billion investment into new data centers here in Canada. But with this US law in place, that multi-billion-dollar investment is nothing more than a digital Trojan horse. It gives the illusion of security while Washington holds the keys. We are going to break down how this US law kills Canadian privacy, why it's a massive power grab based on pure arrogance of the ugly American, and why close ties with Europe are now Canada's only way to protect itself against American data theft. I will do this in 3 sections. First, the Trojan horse. Second, the Canadian impact and why it matters. And third, Canada's only digital lifeline. Let's get right into it. The Trojan horse. The full name of this law, passed on March 2018, is the Clarifying Lawful Overseas Use of Data Act, the Cloud Act. But there is nothing clarifying about it. It is the declaration of unilateral legal power by the United States. To understand its danger to Canada, you only need to know 2 facts. The Cloud Act explicitly states that the US law enforcement agency can demand data from any US-based tech company, be it Google, Amazon, Microsoft, you name one, even if that data is stored on servers in any foreign country. In our case, that means Canadian data stored in Vancouver, Toronto or Quebec is just as accessible as that data would be if stored in Virginia. This single mandate wipes away the legal protection of physical geography. The data is on Canadian soil, but it's legally treated as if it is sitting in Washington. Think about that level of American arrogance. In the moment a US company opens shop in Canada, it creates automatically a jurisdictional island in Canada, overriding our Canadian sovereignty. Are you flipping kidding me right now? When a US court issues a Cloud Act warrant to a company like Microsoft, that company faces an immediate, impossible choice. Option A, comply with the US warrant and face the consequences of breaking Canadian privacy law, like the PPDA. Or option B, refuse to comply with the US warrant and face contempt of court penalties in the US, including massive financial fines. For a global US company, their choice is obvious. They will comply with the US court, making US law the de facto supreme law for our data in our territory. It's a complete legal bypass of Canadian jurisdictions. This is why this massive Microsoft investment, as welcome as it is a dangerous distraction. Microsoft is building infrastructure, yes, But they cannot build an invisible legal shield against the Cloud Act. The US government could, at any moment, leverage this law to access vast amount of Canadian cloud data. Despite all those billions being invested here. We are trusting our digital future to a system where the law of a foreign country, a country that, at this point, cannot be trusted, supersedes our national sovereignty. And this is where the EU comes in, once again. The Canadian impact and why it matters. In late 2025, Microsoft announced a welcomed $7.5 billion investment as part of a massive $90 billion investment to build huge new cloud and AI infrastructure right here in Canada. This deal was supposed to sign a new era of digital independence and job creation. But the Cloud Act makes this a strategic vulnerability. That $7.5 billion investment does not guarantee Canada's control over its own data. It's an investment by a US company operating under US law in Canada. It is ridiculous. The physical location of the data is irrelevant. If the US Department of Justice issued a warrant against Microsoft for any reason, that newly built Canadian-based infrastructure and the data on it must be handed over. We are funding, celebrating, and relying on infrastructure that is legally controlled by an unfriendly power, the orange idiot in Washington. It's an act of arrogance by ugly American to assume legal supremacy over Canadian data, and it puts us on defense before the first server is even fully operational. The data held by those multinational companies isn't trivial. It's a foundation of modern Canadian society. The Cloud Act opens 3 key pressure points. The Cloud Act rips the protection away from your most personal data. Think about your medical records, your financial transaction history, or your private communications, many of which are stored by services owned by US parent companies. US authorities do not need to go through Canadian courts or invoke a treaty like the Multi-Legal Assistance Treaty, the MLAT. They simply command the US company. Your privacy is legally dependent on the US legal system, not Canada's. For Canadian entrepreneurs and startups, this is a major competitive disadvantage because companies in Europe or other non-US aligned countries are increasingly hesitant to store sensitive intellectual properties or client data on Canadian clouds linked to American companies, knowing that that data can be seized. This forces Canadian businesses to choose less scalable, more expensive hosting options just to guarantee their data integrity, a direct drag on our economy. Most critical federal, provincial, and municipal governments used cloud computing for everything from tax data to defense contracts. A foreign law dictates access to this sensitive information, poses an unprecedented risk to Canada's national security and sovereign decision-making. We are outsourcing the technology and by extension the legal control. This is the reality of the Cloud Act. It is a fundamental conflict between a domestic Canadian law and a foreign US mandate that is, for all intents and purposes, American first. This conflict defines Canada's digital future, and it proves that our best and only path to national aspiration to achieve true digital sovereignty lies not in North America, but in the political and digital defense system of Europe. So, if the Cloud Act means we can't trust a US company on Canadian soil, even with a massive 7.5 billion investment, where does Canada turn for true digital sovereignty? The answer is Europe. Europe is not just a trading partner. It is a global leader in establishing legal defense against the kind of digital overreach we are seeing from the US. We don't need to create a new law from scratch to protect Canadian data against the arrogant American power grab. We just need to align with a proven policy firewall. We can simply use what the EU is already using very successfully to protect their data against American overgrab. EU's framework offers Canada a crucial model and a legal partner. The EU's General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, is the most powerful set of data rules on Earth. It is built on the principle that the data belongs to the citizen, not the corporation. For a US company operating in Europe, GDPR liability creates a powerful counterpressure to the Cloud Act. Their fines and legal hurdles are so significant that they often make complying with any overseas US data request nearly impossible without legal confrontation. Canada must go beyond just copying the GDPR. It needs to establish a formalized digital sovereignty alliance, a Canadian-Europe superbloc, that creates a massive, shared, legally protected data market. This alliance would be based on mutual legal recognition of each other's data protection rules. By integrating Canadian privacy law with EU standards, Canada gains leverage. It says to US tech giants, if you want access to the Canadian-European market, you must adhere to our combined strict data protection standards. This forces them to prioritize their sovereign wishes of the combined almost 500 million EU Canadian citizens over the unilateral demand of the Cloud Act. This isn't just about privacy. It's about reclaiming our national dignity. The Cloud Act is a law rooted in a post-9/11 mentality of global American legal power. For us, aligning with the EU is a move that says Canada is not a digital branch of the US. It would be the ultimate act of national aspiration, a strategic move that uses diplomacy and policy to draw a legal line in the sand, ensuring that data stored in Canada is finally and clearly governed by Canadian law. This would be a monumental shift, but it won't happen without political will. So my question to you is, should Canada immediately fast-track a formal digital sovereignty alliance with the European Union? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think a Canadian-EU superbloc is our only hope for digital independence? And if you want to keep tracking the rise of the North Atlantic axis, hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into geopolitical policy. Thanks for watching. I'm Wilfried Lemkuller from Europe Curious.